Hello, BookTube, and greetings from a very, very dark Boston. It's been a very dark day. I finally learned uh, that a good approach to not having enough light in this room when it comes time to talk to my imaginary BookTube friends would be to add more light. So I have attempted to do that. I don't know if it'll work, but we're going to give it a try. I'm hoping that this isn't the pitch dark of. I made a video the other day where the place, Hyde Cottage, was just swallowing every photon of light. I'm hoping this is a little better than that. We've got a little bit of mail that we can go through. Starting with the periodicals, in this case it's the New Yorker, which had it had a lot of stuff in it that I'm looking forward to really digging into. But there was one cartoon, let me see if I can quickly find it, that naturally appealed to the history geek inside me. There's a long article here on the Qatar World Cup that I'll look forward to reading. What a pretzel that will have to twist itself into. But let's see here. Let's just keep chatting while I try to find it. God forbid I put a bookmark in so that I know where it is. So the problem is that I would ordinarily be passing the time by touring you through all of the great cartoons in this issue. But there are very few. The New Yorker has had a very dismal record for cartoons for quite some time. I kind of wish that weren't the case, but nothing I can do about it. Yeah, here we go. It's two peasants mucking around in the mud, and the caption is, "It sure doesn't feel like the Renaissance." But as usual, the first thing that's of any interest in the New Yorker was the letters column, which the New Yorker for the longest time didn't run a letters column of its own, to the point where the old Spy magazine used to mock them for it. And this letters column had ups and downs. I will share both of them with you. First was a batch of letters about an article that we talked about last time I talked about the New Yorker, I think. Daniel Mendelsohn did a long review of Stephanie McCarter's new translation of Ovid's Metamorphoses. A long and very good review. And there are a whole bunch of letters in response to that, and the first one left me speechless. I'm just going to read it so that it can maybe lodge in you. Maybe you can make more of it than I did. I appreciated Daniel Mendelsohn's consideration of Stephanie McCarter's new translation of Ovid's Metamorphoses, which presents the sexual violence that appears in the poem clearly. I reread the Metamorphoses earlier this year, 19 years after I was raped during the summer of my high school graduation. After a decade of therapy, I was struck by Ovid's sensitivity to the complex social and familial dynamics that follow in the wake of sexual violence. In his poetry, victims aren't simply transformed into other bodies, they are abandoned, exiled, and sometimes punished. Medusa's story is especially illustrative. After Neptune rapes her in Minerva's temple, the goddess turns her hair into snakes and banishes her to the farthest corner of the world to live with the monstrous Gorgon sisters. All who look upon her, who witness her in shame, turn to stone. I know this phenomenon well. I have felt isolated in my biological and chosen families and have lost friends and romantic relationships because I stopped pretending, even briefly, that nothing had happened to me. People often turn away from what they prefer not to see. McCarter's translation, with its attentiveness to these elements in Ovid's poem, is a gift to those who are ready to reflect on their experiences as victims and bystanders to rape. I hope that it helps people learn to talk about this trauma and softens hard hearts. That letter left me and continues to leave me completely speechless. Just completely speechless. The one thing that I know, I have a million thoughts that are half-formed or wanting to form or not formed about that letter. The one reaction to it that formed immediately was the first thing I thought, and it is crystal clear, and I 100% believe it, is that the future of studying literature on any level at all is completely doomed. But it wasn't all speechless letters. There was also another letter. There was one letter in this column that wasn't about the metamorphoses of sexual violence survivors. There was one letter that wasn't about that. It was from Winter Haven, Florida, although I suspect that the writer hails from New York, and wrote, reading Jill Lepore's survey of notable apologies. Jill Lepore wrote a really interesting piece on the apology, on what an apology is and what forms it's taken over the ages. She found a whole bunch of real good corkers and a whole bunch of really interesting thoughts on what apologies used to do, on what function they used to serve socially. And I use it in the past tense, even though she defiantly did not. I'm using it in the past tense because apologies don't exist anymore. Once upon a time, if you did something wrong and relatively immediate reflection, it's not an apology if it's a year later, but relatively immediate reflection told you that you were wrong, and you wanted to salvage the damage that it had done to the relationship with the person you did it to, you could go to that person and offer them a sincere apology. Not for what they thought, but for what you did. I have reflected relatively immediately on what I've done, and I realize it was wrong. Please forgive me. And the reason I'm describing what an apology is, a lot of you who watch my channel are, the clock has passed noon. Quite a few of you are young. And if you are born in this century, if you are born in the 21st century, you don't have any idea what an apology is. You can hear about it in books and movies. You can read a definition of it online, but it doesn't exist in your world anymore. Apologies don't exist in our world anymore. No one ever apologizes for anything whatsoever under any conceivable circumstances, not even when, and especially not when they know they are in the wrong. No one ever apologizes. So for the first time in 70,000 years of human civilization, an element of social interaction has simply been removed from the board. It doesn't exist anymore. And I imagine that a lot of young people, young people that are watching, when you get into your mid-20s, if you haven't had it already, I imagine that you're going to have a minute where you think, gee, my world, my personal world would be a lot better if that option were still on the table. I didn't know there was a word for it, but now that I know that once upon a time, every generation before my own had such a thing, I kind of want it. I wish I did have it, but it's not just that some people don't do it anymore. It's that the concept has disappeared. So I was underlining virtually everything in Jill Lepore's article because she kept talking about apologies as though they still exist. And they don't. At all. They don't. But anyway, reading Jill Lepore's survey of notable apologies, I was reminded of what is surely one of the best, fictional or otherwise, that would be the apology John Cleese's character offers in A Fish Called Wander, as he is dangled upside down from a window by someone he has offended. You all know who that is. If you watch that movie, that sublime movie, you all know who that person is. And then they quote the apology. I am really, really sorry. I apologize unreservedly. I offer a complete and utter retraction. The imputation was totally without basis in fact and was in no way fair comment and was motivated purely by malice. And I deeply regret any distress that my comment may have caused you or your family, and I hereby undertake not to repeat any such slander at any time in the future. As you can probably tell from the wording of that John Cleese's character is a barrister in that great, great movie. And naturally, when I saw that quote, brought a big smile to my face. And also it reminded me of every single great moment in that movie. And perhaps perhaps the exchange that comes fastest to my mind whenever I am dealing with a dude bro, because one of the characters in A Fish Called Wanda is a proto-dude bro. The term didn't really exist for the genus in the wild, but looking back, you can easily see. And at one point, this proto-dude bro, his name is Otto, says to another character, apes don't read philosophy. And the other character, played wonderfully by Jamie Lee Curtis, immediately snaps back, yes, they do, Otto. They just don't understand it. Anyway, it was just the corrective I needed. To the other letter, which I will be thinking about for the rest of the year. I will be returning to it. I will cut it out and put it in my journal. I will be thinking about it for the rest of the year. Love to know what any of you think of it, but maybe I don't. Maybe I wouldn't want to know. But anyway, we can leave the New Yorker in the rearview mirror and go to the mail. There's a bunch of packages, no boxes, but there is a big package at the bottom that might be trouble. We'll just wait. We'll wait until we get there. We'll have lots of fun frolicking with the book until we get to the package at the end, which may be trouble. So what is this first thing? What on earth is this first thing? Some sort of mailing envelope? It is. It's a book that was mailed inside the publisher's catalog. Oh my. And the book is a paperback copy of David Hatcher Childress's book, The Bigfoot Files. How wonderful. And Adventures Unlimited, they sent me a catalog of their books. Look at that. There's me and Deb. Oh, well, okay. I didn't know. This thing is absolutely full. I didn't know. I opened right by accident. I opened right to Tales of Superman. I didn't know that they had so many things. I wonder, are there books in here? I don't really want DVDs or anything like that. There must be books in here. Oh my, well, how fantastic. All right, well, let's go over the book. Here, I'll put the catalog aside because I'm definitely going to give them some business. But this is the Bigfoot Files, the reality of Bigfoot in North America. We saw this on a video that I did, but here is the actual physical book. A whole bunch of paperwork in there. Oh, wait, well, is any of the paperwork what I actually need? No. No. No, this is all just publicity folder all over the publisher. But that's all right, because we have a back cover. Let's read the back cover to the Bigfoot Files. Does a giant, hairy, ape-like creature roam the forests and swamps of North America? There's a huge amount of anecdotal eyewitness testimony that says it does. If so, this huge creature has managed to keep pretty well hidden, but is seen from time to time. Bigfoot is seen lurking in the shadows of strip malls in the Pacific Northwest and photographed walking across a stream or hiding behind a tree. He is watching hikers as they move through the forest and occasionally kidnaps children or murders solitary people who are in the woods. The author gives us the latest Bigfoot sightings and photos and looks at how the hairy giant has crept into the American psyche as time goes on. So this is going to have photos in it? Oh, it's loaded with photos. Oh, it is. It's loaded with photos. A lot of the photos are just, tabloids. I wonder if any of the photos will be of actual sightings. Quite a few of the sightings that we have are video snippets that are maddeningly vague. And that, oh yeah, there are some snippets in here, photos of frames from camera footage and whatnot. Oh, and color photos in the middle. Fantastic. So this will have the Patterson-Gimlin. I'm sure it will have the Patterson-Gimlin. And these will all be broken down. All of these things will be broken down and examined. Famously, there's no hard evidence for this. If it's true that there's a giant anthropoid species that lives in the deep forests of not only the Pacific Northwest, but all over the United States and Canada, all over the rest of the world, they're reported almost everywhere in some form or other. If they do exist, the absence of hard physical evidence is pretty damning at this point, because hard physical evidence need not be genetic. It can be just an unambiguous piece of film footage, and there isn't any. Despite how many pictures are in here, believe you me, I have seen every bit of physical evidence up until maybe this autumn. And I think this would have been impressed by then. So there won't be anything in here that I don't already know, that I haven't already examined. But I'm not talking about something where if you hunker down with it with calipers and measuring tape and whatnot and examine film footage frame by frame, then you might be able to come to conclusion X, Y, or Z. I'm talking about an unambiguous picture. A photograph or a piece of video that is totally unambiguous, where you can look at it and say, nothing like that exists in any of the animal catalogs in the world. Like we have for every other animal species on Earth that we know of. Certainly most of the gigantic charismatic ones. Now you might be saying, well, look how long we went without knowing that the bonobos existed. Or, up until the mid-19th century, look how long we went without any actual unambiguous physical evidence of mountain gorillas. But then it happened. That's true, but then it happened. Then once somebody got close to one of these things, they took an unambiguous picture, and you were able to look at it and see, okay, well that's what it is, but it isn't anything else. And every single person that goes out into the wilds of the Pacific Northwest has a high-definition camera on their person at all times, even if they don't bring an actual dedicated camera to take nature photos, which of course they all do. This doofus on the cover doesn't have one, but I guarantee you he has a cell phone in his cargo pants. I guarantee you he does. And a sizable number, I won't say most or even close to a majority, but a sizable number of those people go out hiking kind of wondering if they're going to encounter Bigfoot. This is not a vampire or a zombie movie in Hollywood where the people in a vampire and a zombie movie in Hollywood are the only people who have never heard of a vampire or a zombie. They have to figure it out from the ground up. That's not true of people that go hiking in the Pacific Northwest. Whether they have Bigfoot on the mind or not, whether they are going looking to cause a hoax or not, they have in mind that they've heard stories. Everyone by now has heard stories. And it stands to reason that at least a few of those thousands of people would be willing to risk life and limb in order to get an unambiguous picture of a new megafauna species on Earth. They would be instantly famous. Even posthumously, they would be instantly famous. And it's not likely that it would be posthumous. But there are plenty, you know as well as I do, there are plenty of aimless young Jordan Peterson fans who would consider that dying for that cause worth it. There are plenty of TikTok fame hounds that would be willing to die if it meant getting that picture with their name attached to it. And there isn't such a picture. There isn't such a picture. Not even one. There isn't such a piece of film footage. Not even one. Not even one. And if you're going to mention the Patterson-Gimlin film that started this whole thing off, please watch it. Go and watch the film. Don't watch it doctored or slowed down or anything like that. Watch. I'm sure that YouTube has a million clips of just the original 10 seconds. That's all I want you to watch. Just watch that. No creepy mood music, no slowing down or zooming in. Just watch the original Patterson-Gimlin film footage. It is a man in an ape suit. If you're not just suspending your logic in order to watch that sequence, it's the first thing your brain will tell you. It's a man in an ape suit. That's not even talking about the guy who rented the ape suit to the guy who wore it and who went on a lecture circuit all throughout the American Northwest saying, yeah, I have the receipts, I have the pictures, I can show you the costume, I have the receipt of the guy who bought it. This was all fake. I don't know how any of you are falling for this. I'm not leaving him aside, just leaving him out completely. I'm sure that the diehard Bigfoot fanatics would say that, I don't know, big anthropology got to him or whatever. Leaving him out entirely. Just watch the footage. And your brain, your eyes, your senses will immediately tell you it's a guy in a monkey suit. But, oddly enough, discounting the Patterson-Gimlin film does not discount the idea. There's way too much anecdotal eyewitness evidence, way too much, for it to be all put down to that, to people who want their 15 minutes of fame, especially since it's infamy, right? A lot of people suffer a lifetime of mockery for going public, or a lot of people don't go public because they're afraid they'll lose their job. It's not a small thing to go to the local parks warden or the local news station, for God's sake, and say, I saw this thing. But plenty of people who do that want that fame. And yet, picture for a minute or go on Google and go to Google Images and type in water buffalo. You'll get 10,000 completely unambiguous photos of water buffaloes. There isn't a single example of that for any kind of large, hairy, man-like creature anywhere in the world. Not one single example. Now, you could say that the reason why is because they're extremely elusive and extremely intelligent. So not only do they want to avoid humans, but they know how to do it. Okay, fine. That applies to lots and lots of animals that we have unambiguous photos of. No animals in the animal kingdom except dogs like humans. All of them instinctively hate humans except for dogs. So no animal wants much to do with humans. But it's still not impossible, especially when there are, as I'm sure it'll be covered in this book, there are tons and tons of people putting footage on the internet or, beforehand selling it to in search of or whatever, saying, here is my footage. I took this little snippet of footage of this creature, and I can also give you my very colorful first-hand account. There are lots and lots of cases like that. And in every single one of those cases, the film is inconclusive. It is vague. It is indistinct. And it cuts off, usually right before it would be absolutely conclusive, right before that moment. So you'll have a famous piece of film footage of somebody canoeing up to a hairy creature that is fiddling with the bottom of a drowned tree stump in a swamp. And then just as the thing stands up and starts to turn around, the film stops. And the person who uploads the film will say, yeah, I was terrified. I was terrified, so I stopped filming. And it's always something like that. And the point I'm trying to make here, and this is a huge digression, is that the person, at least a few of those people, wouldn't be terrified. That would be the moment they were waiting for. The moment when they become the most famous person in the entire century. That would be the moment they went out for in order to have that moment. That would be the payoff. That's not when they would stop filming. If anything, that's when they'd start filming. It seems to me, I have tramped over the countryside that is in this book a million times, alone or with dogs, far, far from places where any human beings are. And it seems to me, based on that experience, that the reason the people in all of those film footages are stopping when the creature starts to turn is because the person taking the film knows it's a bear. And there are no awards for the last few panicked film frames before a bear rips you to shreds. There's no awards for that. There's no fame for that. Instead, your name isn't even known. It's a hiker was disemboweled today in Olympia State Park or whatever. And everybody knows that. And everybody knows that. The 10 or 15 diehard psychotic fame hounds who go out into the Pacific Northwest or, the forests of Canada every year, vaguely kind of hoping that they see Bigfoot and film it, or the dedicated people who want to film it, who go out for that reason. Those people know that there is no glory attached to provoking a bear into attacking them. And I think if we're parsing this, judiciously, I think that's the reason why there's no unambiguous film footage, because every single hairy thing we see in any of that film footage is a bear. and you push a bear too far at your peril, and everybody knows that. Whereas if it were a 9-foot-tall anthropoid, a 9-foot-tall hairy man-like being, and it stood to its full 9 feet and turned around and looked at you, if you were one of those fame hounds, you would think you died and went to heaven. You would film every bit of that. You'd be on a live uplink, so that it wouldn't even matter if your camera was never found. And that doesn't exist. That clear, unambiguous indication that these things are real does not exist. Every single piece of film, I watched them all. I want to believe. More than anybody, I want to believe. But I know what bears are like. First of all, I know what the deep forest is like at sundown and at night. And I have to assume that a lot of the people who tape record weird, unearthly sounding cries from the forest at night also know that the animals that we already know about can make those noises. But I have been in those locations, and I know what bears can do. They routinely walk on hind legs. They can walk for long periods of time on hind legs. They can be extremely, I hate to use the term, but man-like. They can be extremely man-like in their mannerisms and their movements. But they're not men. They're not mysteries. And if you push one too far, it will attack you. Anyway, I will see. I'm going to read this thing with a fine-tooth comb. I'm so happy that the press sent it to me. That is fantastic. What a way to start a mail haul. I will read it with a fine-tooth comb. In every single circumstance that the author writes about, I will start out, I freely admit it, I will start out saying, it's a bear. And I want the accounts to convince me otherwise, which is not usually how I read. Usually I read with, okay, well, I'll start with your assumption. And then what I know will trickle in, and if you don't convince me, you don't convince me. But I want an open mind. But not when it comes to this. Not after being disappointed so many thousands of times. I will go into every one of these stories saying, this is a bear. And it will be up to the author or the eyewitnesses or whatever to show me that this couldn't be a bear. So anyway, let's move on. Although it's all downhill after Bigfoot. Let's see what this next one is. The Bigfoot file, I think, is December, so I'm pretty sure I can just read it, tonight. I'm going to read it tonight anyway. I don't care if it's 2005, 2015. Oh, great. Okay, this is Richard Horowitz. This is In the Garden of the Righteous, the heroes who risked their lives to save Jews during the Holocaust. Fantastic. This is... Harper, what is this? HarperCollins, what is this? Notice what's missing from that spine? A date. This is an advance copy, right? So what's missing from that spine? A date. Let's not get cutesy, okay? ARCs have dates on them. This one doesn't appear to have a date on it. Not on the back, no, not on the front, and not on the spine where it belongs. Let's not start a trend, okay? Oh God, this doesn't have a date in it at all. This is a 2023 release, but I don't have any idea. I'm assuming a January thing. How ridiculous. And it doesn't have a description either. It's just blurbs. Should we see who blurbed this? Stuart Eisensat writes a powerful, moving book. This book brilliantly describes how, in the midst of the brutality of the Holocaust and the collaboration, acquiescence, and passivity of millions, there were people who risked their lives to save others out of a sense of shared humanity. Abraham Foxman says, a beautiful tribute, an inspirational message, and an awesome lesson that people who care, who empathize, who respect the other can make a huge difference. Okay, great. David Nassau wrote a really good book on Ambassador Joe Kennedy. Richard Horowitz offers us the gift we need in these trying times, a well-researched and gracefully written history of the unjustly forgotten heroes and heroines of World War II who, honor-bound, risked their own lives to save the lives of others from the Nazi death machines. And Matthew Pearl. This book is a gift to readers, revealing poignant and inspiring stories of heroism and amid horror. Fantastic. Well, I know some of these stories because I've read lots and lots of histories of the Holocaust and Nazi Germany, but I'm sure that a lot of them will be here in a lot of detail that I don't know. Great. Okay, great. So, In the Garden of the Righteous, at some point in 2023. Let's hope the next one is better behaved here, because I don't want that to become a trend. I don't want to have... okay, no, this one is still Harper, but this is April. Oh, this is kind of stylish. Oh, all right, this one has to have a sheet for it. This is by Anthony McCartan, and it is Going Zero. Very nice. It's kind of a plasticky thing here, like a thermometer or a window. Very nice design. What have we got here? If Michael Crichton were alive today, he may have written a book about one of the biggest threats to humanity, surveillance. You know, I'm honestly surprised at this point that Michael Crichton's publishers haven't ground out a new book and said, we found it. It's under a floorboard. I'm honestly surprised that Wheeze hasn't been tried again. Not since, what was it, Chasing Dragons, his book about the bone wars of the 19th century, where the publisher actually had the chutzpah to say, this is a completed manuscript that we just happened to find. The world's best-selling author 10 years after he's dead. But they haven't done it yet. Maybe they're not going to try it anymore. But this pub sheet is saying that Michael Crichton might have approved of this thing. This is a techno-thriller for the times we live in. The premise: 10 Americans have been carefully selected to beta test a groundbreaking piece of spyware. Pioneered by tech wunderkind Cy Baxter in collaboration with the CIA, Fusion can track anyone on Earth. But does it work? Each participant in this test, that should be, is given 2 hours to go zero, to go off-grid and disappear, and then 30 days to elude the highly sophisticated capture teams sent to find them. Any zero that beats Fusion will receive $3 million. If Cy's system prevails, he wins a $90 billion government contract to revolutionize surveillance forever. So that is not the premise. That is the elevator pitch. This is a screenplay with a thyroid problem. But one of the contestants may have been underestimated. Caitlin Day is an unassuming Boston librarian with some secrets up her sleeves. Her stakes are far higher than money and more personal than anyone imagines. Caitlin needs to win as badly as Cy needs to realize his own ambitions. They have no choice but to finish the game, and when the timer hits zero, there will be only one winner. And here's hoping that in the climax, Caitlin does not face down unarmed 3 gigantic, burly male mercenaries and defeat them easily. Let's hope that doesn't happen. Let's hope that we are gradually, very grudgingly, leaving those days behind. In this unique thriller, oh baby, now Seymour, slow down. Even from the premise that you've described, this is not unique. Let's start retiring that word. And let's stop qualifying it. Okay? I hear all the time on BookTube and off, something is very, very unique, something is incredibly unique. Unique is solitary. That's the whole definition of the word. You can't partially be or Anyway, this unique thriller is written by four-time Oscar nominee Anthony McCartan. Now that I absolutely believe. This is a screenplay. One of the most in-demand writer-producers at work today. The New Zealand-born screenwriter, playwright, novelist, and journalist known for his work on The Theory of Everything, Darkest Hour, The Two Popes, and Bohemian Rhapsody. Those are all great. Wow. Okay. But that known for his work seems a little vague. Did he write those? Why? If he didn't write them, if he did write them, why wouldn't you just say that? So what does that mean, known for his work on? You know, I'm presuming that he either partly or mostly wrote them, and not that he was catering the craft service table. Has a very big fall coming. His Neil Diamond Broadway musical, A Beautiful Noise, starts on December 4th. His play, The Collaboration, about the relationship between Andy Warhol and Basquiat, opens on Broadway on December 20th. Yes, and who's playing Warhol? Is it David Hyde Pierce? Niles Fraser? I remember I was struck by the casting of Warhol. I was struck because I thought, okay, that's perfect casting, and this person's going to show up one performance a week at most. They'll run breach of contract because they won't feel like doing it. And that wouldn't be David Hyde Pierce, so maybe I'm remembering that wrong. But anyway, that premieres on Broadway on December 20th. Who will be watching Broadway plays on December 20th? I guess the diehards will be, and they're the ones who'd pay. And the world premiere of his Oscar buzz-worthy feature film, I Want to Dance with Somebody, about Whitney Houston, releases December 22nd. Well, geez, that is a full catalog, isn't it? Going Zero, which has already been sold into 20 countries, will be adapted by McCartan for the screen. Well, I would imagine that it would be. It seems like it was adapted from the screen, not for the screen. And the fact that he is one of the most in-demand writer-producers of his day, if you weren't already told that, you could guess because when he's writing at home, he wears a decorative scarf. Which I can't get away with. Can you imagine if I did a Steve stream with a decorative scarf here on the fainting couch? Wouldn't happen. I should stress all of the above. Fun ribbing of the author, and also not meant in the slightest as criticism. What is Meg by Steve Alden? If it isn't a screenplay with a thyroid problem, honestly, I ask you. I have nothing against screenplay novels, nothing at all. And this sounds fantastic. You tell a group of people, we're testing the world's best surveillance equipment, and in order to win your pocket money, you have to avoid this surveillance detection for a certain amount of time. What if one of the people in that group isn't just playing for the money? What if there's something much deeper involved and you just happen to have picked the wrong person? That is pretty good. That is gold. So I don't get to read it until the spring. But anyway, that sounds really good. Going Zero. Very nice. All right, let's move on here. This mail haul is going long. That's partly because I'm just a chatty Cathy, but I admit some of you are already going to see this coming. It's also because I got crushed with a new deadline. It was sort of self-inflicted, but I want it. I'm not arguing at all, but I got crushed with a new deadline, and I am partly dodging it right now. I don't think, make any other videos. I'm so tempted to do a Steve stream later today, except there's no light, and I wouldn't have any reason to do it except to avoid work. It's not absolutely crucial. It would be absolutely crucial. In fact, it would be impossible if I lived the way the rest of you do, where at 8:30 at night, I'm starting to go, and at 8:45, I'm thinking, is it too early to go to bed? And then at 10:30, all the muscles in the face completely relaxed, just Swamp Thing, with drool coming out, just dead to the world until 10 the next morning. If that were true, and not only true, but had to be true, I would be absolutely rogered. But it's not. I'm going to work all night. I keep telling myself, well, you're going to work all night, so maybe you can afford a Steve stream. I don't know. We'll see. What is this next one? It's a finished copy. Oh, it's a pretty thing. Boy, what's going on here? These American release books that aren't bad looking. Okay, so this came out on December 6th. This is out already. This is a finished copy of Terra Nova by Henriette Lazaridis. Very nice. What have we got? This is out already. I can read this tonight along with the Bigfoot book. A haunting story of love, art, and betrayal set against the heart-pounding backdrop of Antarctic exploration. Okay, the year is 1910, and two Antarctic explorers, Watts and Haywood, are racing to the South Pole. Back in London, Viola, a photojournalist, harbors love for both of them. In this book, the author seamlessly ushers the reader back and forth between the austere, forbidding, yet intoxicating polar landscape of Antarctica to the bustle of early 20th century London. I kind of like that. That's kind of neat. Provided Viola doesn't, in the climax of the novel, take on four burly male mercenaries and throw them around the room like they were confetti. Provided that doesn't happen. I'm assuming that it won't, but I would like it if we could dispense with the era of the girl who's the key to everything, girl boss, don't need no man, stupid posturing of the last 6 or 7 years. It'd be nice if we could get rid of that. We could just move past it and tell really good stories about really complex, interesting heroines without needing to make them from Krypton. But I'm importing that into this book. There's no hint of that so far. Though anxious for both men, Viola has little time to pine. She's photographing hunger strikers in the suffragette movement, capturing the female nude in challenging, politically powerful ways. As she comes into her own as an artist, she's eager for recognition to fulfill her ambitions. And then the men return, eager to share news of their triumph. But in her darkroom, Viola discovers a lie. Watts and Haywood have doctored their photos of the pole to fake their success. She must now decide whether to betray her husband and her lover or keep their secrets and use their fame to help her pursue her artistic ambitions. Okay, well, unless her husband and her lover are the same person, if Watts and Haywood, if one of them is her husband and the other is her lover, then who cares what the hell she does? She's already betraying both of them. But maybe not. Maybe one of them is and the other one's just left, so to speak, out in the cold. So who is this author, Henriette Lazaridis? The author of The Clover House, which I think I read. And her short work has appeared in Elle, the New York Times, New England Review, and The Millions, and Pangyris. And she earned a Massachusetts Cultural Council Artist Grant. Okay, great. Fantastic. Well, this is out already, so I wonder, naturally, it's not, the book doesn't hinge on it, but I naturally wonder what the descriptions of Antarctica will be like. I imagine that I will be the only book reviewer who reads this thing who's been to Antarctica. And far, far away from the inadvisedly far away from the scientific research station where most people stay. Me and my dogs struck inland quite a distance, and it was amazing. But I don't know where this intoxicating comes from. It's a horrible place. I mean, it is another world. It doesn't have. I'm not anthropomorphizing it, but it's another world. It's a world that isn't at all hospitable to human life. It's a plateau on Mars. It's another world. You wouldn't live very long at all. And you sort of, that's everywhere. That's all around you when you're there, is that this is incredibly hostile. The hard horn of the world, as Tolkien would put it. But this is out already, so this goes on the reading list. And then we come to the odd package. It's heavy, and it's from thrift books. And that's how I know that it's odd, because I don't shop on thrift books. A lot of you swear by thrift books. And I don't have anything against them. I've just never really got into the habit of using them. Book Depository I used to love because of its slow boat to China approach. And, the free shipping. But mainly the slow boat to China approach, where you place an order and sometime next year you'll get it. I kind of like that. That seemed very neat and old-fashioned. And otherwise, believe it or not, I am still trying my luck on eBay when I haven't done it in months and months, but when the idea comes to me, I go on eBay, even though I now know, after this year, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that eBay is stocked from stem to stern with black-faced liars. People who are simply lying about what they are offering for sale on the site. And the site largely doesn't care. Practicing attorney filing papers on them can get their attention, but it seems like nothing short of that can. They don't seem to care about how many people have been proven to be frauds on their site that they still host on their site. Whereas that wouldn't happen, right, in a mall. If a little shop in a mall kept shortchanging people or selling them stuff that fell apart as soon as they walked out the door, the mall association would get rid of that shop. It makes the whole place look bad. But thrift books? No. And yet this is from thrift books. So I'm thinking one of you broke rule number 1 and got me a book. Rule number 1 on this channel, for all of you who are new, and I'm assuming that this is a new person, is don't get me a book. It's the most natural thing in the world for you to want to do it, since I love books and I talk about them all the time, but I already have the book you want to send me, or I don't want it, and I'm too courteous to tell you that when I see it. So you send it to me, and I open it, as I suspect is going to happen in a second, and I go, oh, that's great, thank you so much. And the only thing in my mind is, what a waste of time and money to send me, of all people, a book. I get lots of books in the mail, as you've seen in this last 2 hours. And I also have access to the Brattle Bookshop here in Boston, where the Brattle will provide. Anything that I want will eventually show up there. And I do most of my reading in ebook form anyway. So anyway, let's see. I saw this earlier, and I confess I was curious. I wanted to rip it right open. Let's see if somebody has broken rule number 1, and if they have, is it a new person who maybe didn't know rule number 1 existed? Okay. All right. Well, this is no excuse. This is no excuse at all. I did a video the other day, a top 10 list of science fiction anthologies. And I mentioned one that was one of the greatest science fiction anthologies of recent memory. And I mentioned in that video that I don't have a copy at all. I don't have an e-copy. I don't have a trade paperback. I don't have a hardcover. And one of you, bless your heart, got me a copy on Thrift Books. The Science Fiction Century, edited by David Hartwell, in a really nice hardcover. I mean, I would have grabbed this at the Brattle if I'd seen it. Absolutely, no matter what. Even if I saw it inside, not in the sale lot at all. So, okay, this was very, very nice, but let's not have it be a precedent. Don't send me a book. This is a bullseye. This also neatly fills out the rest of the reading time tonight. I mean, there's the Bigfoot book, and there's Terra Nova, but then there's a lot of this tonight. And it'll go in Little Book Room, which is nice. That's always an extra bullseye. But still, don't get me a book. Don't do it. Thank you. Whoever it was who sent this, thank you very much. How wonderful. Great. Fantastic. Okay, so look at that. There we go. There is the thrift book sticker. Well, this is... Okay, so in addition to thanking you, whoever you are, I don't know who you are. If you don't want to be anonymous, some of you send me things and you want to be anonymous. You just want to see the smile on my face. You don't necessarily want even a thank you. If you're not like that, feel free to email me and sing out that you're the one who got this thing. I promise I won't yell at you. Let's get this sticker off here. No stickers on books. Okay. Well, this is fantastic. This is just fantastic. All right, so the Science Fiction Century. Thank you very much, whoever sent this. We have Terra Nova. One of them is lying, and there's photographic evidence. She's a photographer. She spots the lie. Wonder what it would be. What could it be? It'll be just open ice scapes. How could there be a lie involved in that? I can't wait, and I don't have to wait. Fortunately, in this case, I don't have to wait because I can just read it tonight. Whereas this thing, Going Zero, I can't read tonight. It's next year, but it sure does sound good. The premise sure does sound good. Same thing with this thing from I don't know the month. I don't know. I'm being cute like Shirley Temple. I'm not going to put a publication month on the pre-publication volume that is going to be stacked in a newsroom just like this. Except that every single person is going to look at it and say, oh, wait, what's that one again? Was that February, March? I'm going to write it in pen on the spine so that I don't have to do that. But this is about the people who stepped forward to do the right thing at the worst time in history, knowing that their own lives and the lives of their loved ones were on the line. A pure example of heroism. And then finally, the Bigfoot files. Brimming with new sightings and new stories. And in addition to that, the publishers, bless their heart, sent me their catalog. So I'd almost forgotten the fun of getting a book catalog in the mail. That all happens in EPUB now, in emails. It used to be that book catalogs came every day. But no, that's largely stopped, except for this thing. So that's fantastic. Although, we'll wrap up. I promise 45 minutes is plenty long enough. But now that I mention it, since I've got you right here, the few of you who are not in a coma already from going through this much tedium, what other book catalogs do you get in the mail? Do you have any that you can recommend? Assuming they'll all be free. Any places, any book catalogs that I can sign up for? This is a lot of fun. If there are others out there that I don't know about, I'd be happy. Does Daedalus still make a catalog? I don't even know. If you know, feel free to let me know. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. This has gone on quite long enough. Boy, we had everything, didn't we? Bigfoot, a violation of rule number 1 that actually worked, but don't let that fool you. It's still not a good idea. There are plenty of times in videos where I say, I don't have a copy of book X, Y, or Z, and the next day I go to the Brattle and get one. You'd still be out. You'd still be wasting your money to do it. Even that. Anyway, I'm very, very grateful. I'm going to wrap this up. I suspect that I have to get back to work. I don't think I have it in me to make another video. I don't think I can justify the time. I'll find out. I'll figure it out. So later today, it might be possible. Thank you, BookTube.